Greetings, my beloved clients and friends. I was thinking about you guys this morning on my hike, and I just wanted to share a thought with you. We had started talking about a week ago about 10 baggers. Then I had to talk about volatility for a little bit, but I want to get back on that subject of the 10 baggers. Companies that over the time you own them increase tenfold, and we're looking at a 5 to 10 year hold typically. Sometimes it happens sooner, but we'd be perfectly happy if it took 5 to 10 years, because even if it took 5 to 10 years, that would be a 25 to 50% annualized return, which is very good. So when I started reading and studying and researching about 10 baggers, I want to know more about them. And so one of the things I did was kind of to approach it like a big game hunter. I tried to understand my prey and their movements and that type of thing. So one thing I did was to look at companies that had done well and look at their stock price and say, okay, so let's say the stock price is at 300 today. Go back and say, in the last 10 years, has it been as low as 30? Because if it had, that would mean that this company was a 10 bagger. And if I would have bought it at 30, I would have gotten a 10 bagger. And so I would look at that. When I'd find one like that, I'd look at it at the time when it was at 30 and not give myself the benefit of any foresight, knowing what was about to come. Just saying, at that time, what could I have publicly known about this company? Okay, looking at their financials, what did their reports look like? Who was their CEO? What was he saying? What was the media saying about him? What were the customers saying about them? What were their plans and projections? And just observing, not trying to find any patterns, just observing. And over the course of time, observing many of these companies that went on to become 10 baggers, looking at them at that point when from that point, within 10 years, they would have become a 10 bagger. Just let those patterns start to emerge. Not force it, but just keep an open mind, and every now and then I'd be like, hey, this looks like one of these other ones I looked at. And then I start noticing, a few of them have this characteristic. And try to start to identify those patterns. And those patterns that I was able to identify, I have been able to use to identify 10 baggers for my portfolio. Companies that have become 10 baggers, or I'm very confident that they're on their way to becoming 10 baggers, okay? So I just wanted to share a few of those characteristics. Probably won't go through all of them because that's my secret sauce. But over the course of a few videos, I want to go over several of them. So we'll just start with a few today. So one of those characteristics that I have noticed common among companies that have gone on to become 10 baggers was that the CEO was also the founder. And the CEO was the type of person, you could call him a visionary. He had this grand vision for the future. And as opposed to some CEOs are more managers or leaders, but not visionaries. So it was like a visionary type of CEO, and that CEO tend to have somewhat of a polarizing personality. I wouldn't go so far as to say charismatic, because they weren't not all charismatic, but at the very least polarizing, meaning he drew a group of people that were staunch advocates And then he also drew a group that were staunch detractors. You know, he had that type of effect. So, for example, Steve Jobs at Apple. Visionary, polarizing. Apple was a 10-bagger. Amazon, Jeff Bezos, same thing. Larry Ellison at Oracle. Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook. Larry Page and Sergey Brin at Google. Sam Walton at Walmart. Saul Price at Price Club, which became Costco. Howard Schultz at Starbucks. Steve Knight, I think his name is, at Nike. Phil Knight at Nike. And just to name a few. And so these were 10-baggers I had studied, and 10-baggers that I had bought. That one of the markers was that visionary and polarizing CEO. Think Tesla, Elon Musk. I think Brian Armstrong at Coinbase might fall in that category. The guy at Palantir, Benioff at Salesforce, and the guy at Square, Jack Dorsey, the guy at Zillow. I don't know his name, but this guy was a visionary. He, prior to Zillow, he founded Expedia, sold it for a big profit, ended up on the board of Netflix, another 10-bagger. He's been on the board at Netflix like 17 years. And then he founded Zillow, right? So they fit that mold that we were looking for. And that's just to name a few. And there's some that I am looking at that I have not bought yet, or that I can't buy yet, that I think have that type of CEO. I think maybe the guy at this company called Anduril, which is still private. And there's some others. I can't think of any at the top of my head right now, but so that's one characteristic, that a visionary CEO / founder who's a polarizing type of figure. Oh, I know another one, Ryan Cohen, the guy that founded Chewy. He's not the founder of GameStop, but he took over GameStop and now the chairman of the board. So that was one kind of characteristic common among 10-baggers. Not every single 10-bagger had that, but it was common. Another characteristic, and along the similar lines, was raving fans / customers. And to offset that, dissenters that were as passionate, right? Apple had that. They had these Apple fanboys, and man, you start any conversation with them and they end up talking about Apple. And they'd wait in line for days to buy the new phone. You know, that kind of, that passion. There's some people about that, like that about Amazon too. They just got to talk about Amazon. And Nordstrom was the case. I mean, people would have, they remember that license plate thing, I'd rather be shopping at Nordstrom. It went through that phase when it wasn't just customers, they were like fans. And so, but a lot of these companies, they had their strong detractors as well. Apple, people would be like, well, yeah, they came out with that one product, but what are they going to do for an encore? You know, they came out with the iPod, and like, wow, what's next? And here's an example of raving fans. My daughter was like around 11, and I coached her volleyball team, and we're like, what do you guys want to name the volleyball team? And it's these 11-year-old girls, and guess what they said? The Nanos. Because the iPod Nano And when you see a sign like that, you got to think, maybe I should look into that company. When kids are want the name of their team to be the name of a product, that's a good sign. And so going back to Apple's detractors, I mean, they were like, yeah, but what are they going to come up with next after the iPod? And then they came out with the iPhone, and then they're like, well, what next? And then the iPad, and they're like, yeah, but I think there are a lot of tricks. You think the watch is going to be the big hit or not? And they didn't realize that, as Damodaran, the father of valuation, he said about Apple that it's the greatest cash flow generator in the history of the world. I personally think it might be second to the Persian Gulf, but it's up there. It's an amazing cash flow generator, and he was right. And now, the detractors over time have been quieted because it's just such a consistent cash flow generator. But at that time, when I was on the way to being a 10-bagger, there was that sign, that passionate people in favor of the company and passionate people against it. Same thing with Amazon. Oh, they don't make any money. They're taking they're just a book company. What are they going to do next? And those passionate detractors. Same thing with Walmart. When they were coming up, they come in and they're killing retail and the little guy and this and that. And then there are other people that were extremely passionate in favor of it. So that was a common sign, that passion on both sides of this company. You could say the same thing about Tesla today or Bitcoin. So in other companies that I've seen that sign, that these fans, and there are some online outlets that are starting to develop that hardcore fan base, and the detractors as well. So that's a second thing to look out for. A third thing would be, well, let me add to that. Who were the fans and who were the detractors? And in many cases, not all, but in many cases, it was the usual suspects. And what I mean by that was, there's like a certain group that for some reason has a knack for being identifiers or early adopters of these things that go on to be these 10-baggers. And if I were to stereotype them a little bit, they might wear skinny jeans and go to Starbucks and that kind of thing. But they're at the front of these things for some reason. It was like the usual crowd. The same crowd that was huge fans of Apple was also fans of Amazon and Starbucks and some other of these bleeding edge or emerging technologies. And then the detractors were often the usual suspects as well. And it was the crowd that would say maybe opposed to when smoking was starting to get cut out of restaurants and airplanes and stuff, and they're like, why are they limiting where we could smoke? Kind of that crowd. Or the same crowd that was when they came out with unleaded gasoline was like, yeah, what's wrong with leaded gasoline? And why do I need a catalytic converter? And this thing knocks and pings. And they were same crowd that was kind of anti-seat belts. Hey, why are they going to tell me what to do in my own car? And they were probably the same ones that oppose, Tesla and Bitcoin, and they tend to be late to the game. Now, if you're in that category, it's not a knock against you, but if as an investor, and you tend to maybe identify with, say, no, I tend to catch myself doing that. Well, as an investor, it would be good to know yourself and say, that might not suit me best for investing. And Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you'll win almost every time. If you know yourself, but you don't know your enemy, you'll probably win about half the time. And if you don't know yourself and you don't know your enemy, you're gonna lose almost every time. So there's nothing wrong with being that way, but notice that it's probably not gonna really suit you well in investing, and be able to recognize it and say, hey, maybe I could signal myself when I have a reaction to something, maybe that's something I should buy. So that was the second one. And the third one was a disruptive technology. And by technology, I don't necessarily mean computers. For example, Gerber baby food was a disruptive technology. Prior to them, the mothers mashed their own food, and then Gerber came with this pre-mashed food, right? In a convenient container. That you could call that a disruptive technology. Or Pampers was disposable diapers, which was disruptive to the cloth diaper industry. So many of these companies were disruptors. They had disruptive technologies. Apple did too. They disrupted phones and cameras and all kinds of things. Amazon disrupted shopping. You know, Tesla's disrupting ICE, internal combustion engines, energy, many things. Bitcoin's disrupting finance. And so those are three characteristics that were common among 10 baggers. And when I see that pattern, I perk up my ears and say, maybe I need to look more closely at this company. So I just wanted to share those three with you. There are more, but we'll do those on other videos. By the way, I'm not here sharing investment advice. It's just investment education or information. If someone were to want investment advice, I would first have to know them and know their investment objective, time horizon, risk tolerance, and many other things. So this is just for information purposes. That being said, feel free to share this video, and if it's a topic that you especially like, click the like so that I know, okay, they like that kind of content. And you could also subscribe, so because many of you receive these videos by email, but if you're not on the email list, if you subscribe, you'll get them automatically. So hope you guys have a great day, and I'm off to the top of the mountain.